When someone close to you loses a loved one, what's better to say than I'm sorry? Some people hate this, and it's understandable, but the most comforting thing I was told after losing my dad was, it's just going to suck for a while. After tolerating mountains of, I'm so sorry, I know how you feel, God is watching over him now, blah babbity blah etc. I thought I was going to snap all over again. A dear friend held me close and told me, it's just going to suck for a while. Life will suck for a while, but it's going to pass, come back, pass, and come back again over and over. It'll never stop entirely hurting. I cried harder than I had since he was diagnosed, but they were tears of relief and release. Her words still comfort me almost 3 years later, but I know for a fact not everyone would appreciate it. I suppose those words are just good if you know your loved one has a disdain for repetitive pleasantries and religious explanations. Sadly, at 31, I have lost my mother in 2008, my 2-year-old daughter in 2016, and my sister in 2018. If you're talking about at funerals, family gatherings etc., it doesn't matter too much. It's just a long blurry dreamlike state for a lot of people. They also know that you probably don't know what to say. They don't either. Don't be afraid to bring up good times. It hurts but it's also healing. Don't say they're in a better place you'll meet again, they are always with you, that shit gets old fast. I get why people say it, but nobody is ready for that shit at funerals. All they want is that person back. Save that for another day. Just say it from the heart. More often than not, at the very least, you'll get an E for effort. One of my best friends lost their mother recently. She was an amazing woman and played a huge role in my life growing up. At the funeral, when I hugged my friend, I told him how much I loved her and how much I was going to miss her and how sorry this happened. I got choked up and felt like the worst person for crying to the person who deserves to be crying. My friend told me at the time and many times since that he appreciated it, seeing how much everyone loved her and that he wasn't grieving alone. He knew I meant every word and that it was from the heart. I think sometimes people just want to know they are not alone, although I still feel bad. My mom passed a couple years ago. She was a music teacher, active in her community, taught myself and a bunch of my friends, and ran a non-profit performing arts studio before finally succumbing to end-stage ovarian cancer. She loved her students, and the first time I started accepting the fact that she might not beat the cancer was when she told me she was too sick to attend a performance. At the funeral, some former students sang and played. Many families she taught attended, some with kids of their own. They all came to my sisters and I and told us how much she touched their lives, and I felt lucky to have so many brothers and sisters in grief. A few months back, a friend of my sister's messaged her to say that when attending a function at a local elementary school she walked past a class project about heroes that changed the students' lives. My mom was featured as one of those heroes. The good times are what it's all about. Seeing the mark that your loved one left on those around you, that's the good stuff. I see my mom in my sisters, in myself, in my daughter, in her students, in her friends, in my wife, in her family, in everyone who knew her. It's unfair that she's gone, but it's funny how I still see her every day. I'm a big believer in feeding the grieving. Losing someone, especially suddenly, is a huge shock to most people, and they find it hard to eat. There's not much to say that will make it better, but acts of service, such as giving them food, cleaning their apartment if they are too depressed, or even just taking their car to refill their gas tank, can help a lot when someone's in that frame of mind. However, I will note this. When I miscarried, a nurse came into the room and said, "I know that nothing I can say will make this better, but I'd like to give you a hug." I have lost many people in my life, and that was the best response to my grief I have ever experienced. Hundreds of people came to my grandpa's visitation. The I'm sorry S, and he was a great guy S all ran together after a few hours. Two comments stuck out to me when it was over. Both were from people who told a specific story about him, some way he had touched their lives, previously unbeknownst to me. I realized the two women who did this had recently lost family members of their own, so I figured they knew from experience what would be most helpful to say. Now when I go to a visitation, I try to come up with a favorite memory of the deceased. to share with their loved ones. Bonus points if it's a new story, something the mourners wouldn't have known about. When coming to terms with a death, it's heartening to realize you can still learn new things about the person you've lost. Offer to bring them food. One of the more difficult things to do during the initial stages of mourning is to eat properly. The closer the mourner is to the deceased, the harder that is, because a series of important decisions have to be made in great haste, such as organ donation and funeral arrangements and memorial services. The rest of life doesn't slow down in the meantime. Then there's the will, or the lack of one, and the quest for important documents. There's going through personal belongings and arranging an estate sale. The less organized the deceased was, the more daunting that gets. Wedding rings and rare childhood photos turn up among unopened mail. Long dormant storage lockers contain a pile of garbage with a valuable vintage science fiction collection in the corner. Then, as often as not, there's at least one relative who tries to steal an inheritance, while another is an overgrown child who tries to make the funeral all about themselves. It's exhausting. Tangible assistance is often sorely needed, and home-cooked food is the safest option, because it's one of the things that falls by the wayside during that crush. Everybody is going to say to them, "Let me know what I can do for you." But the person will never ask for anything. Instead, make some suggestions. Say things like, "I'd like to bring over some food. Is there anything you are allergic to? I know a great house cleaning service that owes me a favor. What would be a good time for them to come by? You could use some me time. When you're ready, here's a pass for a mani, PD and spa." The grieving person probably has no idea what they want or what they need, and it's just one more decision to make when you are already overwhelmed. It's so much better to offer something concrete like food, babysitting if the bereaved has children, a coffee date, etc. Then the only decision the person has to make is, do I want this thing now? And don't be offended if they say no, or not right now. Everyone needs something different at different times. I would also add that grief lasts a long ass time. So don't forget about the person a few months after the loss. Grief often hits hard a few months later, and that's about when everybody else forgets about it and moves on. My grief was worst about a year after my mother died, but by then everyone kind of thought I should be over it, and it made the process that much more lonely. I miss them too. Grief is often about feeling left and lost, and simply having someone else express a similar feeling is comforting. At my mother's funeral, my best friend asked how I was doing, and I replied with, "I'm fine." To which he laughed in my face and said, "No, you're not, but I miss her too." It was one of the most touching and comforting moments. I feel like this could be taken negatively by many people. It almost sounds like you're trying to make it about you. Hey, look, I know you're sad, but so am I. I get it, that it could be nice to know you aren't alone, but maybe there's something better to say that doesn't seem like you're trying to take the focus off of their pain. It does sound like your friend is a friend for a reason. They knew what to say to you, specifically, and it helped you. I hope you are doing better. "I'm sorry" is still a hell of a lot better than what I got, which was, "You're the man of the house now. It's your job to take care of your mother and sisters." It was always my responsibility to look out for them. That's what families are supposed to do. But when my dad died, the only concern people had for me was what I was supposed to do for others. Nobody went to my sisters and said they should be looking out for me, like I hadn't just lost my father. I never even had a real chance to really mourn my dad before I was being bombarded with responsibility. Hell, people were cracking jokes about when I was going to get married. My well-being was the least of their concern. They were only concerned with what I was supposed to be doing for others. And because of it, I still feel guilty for not being better, more capable, stronger. I'm still not sure I'm not being selfish for wanting people to console me like they were my mom and sisters. Like, I'm happy people were doing that for them, but I'd have liked to get a piece of that too. This is absolutely a type of toxic masculinity. I'm so sorry your family didn't console you and allow you the time you need to grieve your father like they did your female relatives. You did not have to be better, more capable, and stronger than them. That's some real bullshit. From one stranger to another, I'm sending you the biggest hug. It's okay to miss your dad. It's okay to break down. It's okay to nurse the hole in your chest. As long as you need. Fuck everybody who expected you to brush off or lock those emotions away for the sake of others. That's not how grief works. Their unrealistic expectation of you is not your responsibility.